Yeah, we're actually live this time.
Cool.
Man, dude, like I say, I was so vexed. I was just unbelievable because it was just a banger of a conversation. It was so good, and it went like a million different ways, and that we
Yeah,
didn't plan. Do you know what
yeah.
I mean? Offshoot. So that's why I'm like, no, I've got to get you and Alex back on. So we're live on the Christian Fandom Geek. Big thanks to those of you who will end up playing this stream or even after the stream has finished. And it's a Christian Fandom Geeks plural episode there because I got Omar, resident Jedi Knight, public intellectual, um, one of the coolest cats I know. One of the guys I know that actually, when he goes into the room, he's genuinely up there, or if not, the smartest fella in the room. And
I
I don't
wish.
say that about everyone. So you know what I mean. So that's what I mean, man. You got to speak the truth when you know truth is truth, guys. So it is like that. So Omar, who is came out of retirement because he went into early retirement out of streaming. He's come out, managed to coax him out of retirement with without really any cash incentives.
No.
So it's done really well. Alex Rule Martin is a good friend of mine who basically there's a backstory here. I got Omar and Alex on to do an episode, and it was one of the best episodes of all time on any streaming platform. And I hadn't streamed on StreamYard for a while, and I got thrown off my game because somebody got a comment through. Do you remember that, Omar? A comment
Yeah,
came
I
through on
do.
the thing.
Yeah, I do
And because the
remember.
comment came through, I thought, oh, we're live, and we weren't live. And basically, it was just the pre-part where you like connect to YouTube and it shows a stream's about to happen. So basically, we spoke for about over an hour. It was a banger of a conversation. We talked about so much stuff. Talked about basically beauty in movies and what we love, like the sort of the beauty of films and things like that. And it went all over the place. Great conversation, not recorded. It was unbelievable
Yeah.
moment in my life. I was like, no. It was literally like Luke against Vader. You know, when he goes, I'm your father. He was like, no. It was that moment. I couldn't
It's
believe
not possible.
it. Search your feelings, you know. True. Oh, he's a legend, isn't he? It was his birthday recently. I saw him. Was it like about a month ago? It was his birthday or something. And I was like, I saw it, and everyone was like, "Oh, thank God, it's just his birthday. It's nothing else. He's still alive." Because you know, you see a celebrity trending,
You start trending. Yeah, you get
you
worried.
think, are they alive? Like, is something happened to them?
Yeah,
You think
yeah,
something dodgy. It's either they're not alive anymore, or something bad's happened to them.
yeah.
Like when it was
Or they've said something bad.
oh yeah, they've said something they shouldn't have said, like, and it's just like, you might get deplatformed now. You've been a naughty boy. And the thing is, Omar, this is the thing, man. I'm gonna say, let's speak the truth on Christian Fandom Geek. Let's speak the truth. We live in a very sensitive age. We do. We live in a sensitive age. You have to be careful about what you say, and there is a balance now between kind of, because a lot of the guys that I follow me on Red 5 and Fandom Collective who are kind of, they're probably a bit more on the conservative side, so they're very much on the speak the truth, don't be intimidated, blah blah blah. And I know there's a balance to it because obviously you don't want to go around offending people for the sake of offending people. You don't want to be that guy. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? That guy. It's just like, man, like, there's always someone who goes too far and, just like, just calm down, let's all relax kind of thing. But also, you don't want to be intimidated that you can't speak any kind of truth and feel like you just got it's almost like a spirit of fear, like, and I think the culture is like, we have more social awareness now, which is good. We want that. There is sort of nuance in the culture, but I think there's also, for me, there's a bit of a spirit of fear as well, where it's like you almost can't say anything, and if you do, you're going to be in trouble. So you have to measure your words. You have to almost think, okay, whatever you're going to say, it's going to come with a price tag, so you've got to be like, okay, can I afford the consequences of what I'm going to say? Can I afford the price tag? Can I afford what's going to come after I've said it? That's basically it, really.
Yeah, I get that, and I agree. Is that a problem?
What do you
Is
mean?
there a problem? As in, what you say has a price tag, which I completely agree.
Yeah.
So what you're saying there is that what you say has a level of accountability.
It does, 100%. And I think,
I think we as a culture, I get your premise, but I would go further and say that we are in an era of transition.
yeah,
And I think what was like, I think that's the kind of thing where it is where I guess why some people would feel the fear, because it's the unknown. Because they don't know what the the cultural norms are shifting in
yeah,
a
big
very
time.
profound way. And I think that is a byproduct of the internet. Like
Yeah,
being in a we are now in a world where our reach is further than at any point in history.
yeah,
And because of that, we have to, I think we are of like kind of millennials, like zennials, where we know a
I'm glad
world
you know.
before.
I'm glad you know the semantics for it, because I'm like, what are we now? Like millennials, post millennials.
As our generation, which is supposed to be between the early 80s, like between like 1982
Yeah,
to to I think it's what 96, 97 is supposed to
yeah,
be millennials, because
yeah,
we are the generation that had a world before the internet, and we
yeah,
also were the ones that were offered the generation that the turn of the millennium. But
yeah,
then there is a kind of a sub that they've now have like a sub kind of generation, which is the Zennial, which is kind of the crossover between Generation X and Millennial, which is kind of where we are, because we just like that kind of time, like between the kind of true definition of those kind of generations. So
yeah,
the early 80s, so like between like the late like 1979 to like 1983, that's
yeah.
generally kind of seen as like zennials. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is we kind of saw the birth of the internet kind of
Yeah.
permeate across the world.
Well,
And
when it first came out for me and for you, Omar, as well. Obviously, like you said, we were around at a pretty decent age. I mean, I'm thinking probably at least teenagers,
yeah,
and then dial-up came in. So it was like the first baby broadband. The first broadband came in through dial-up, where it was like,
yeah,
you had your modem, and it's like literally you either could use a very basic internet or your landline phone line.
yeah.
You couldn't use both at the same time.
No,
That's where basically that's where it came in for us. So
yeah,
I was me and you were teenagers at that point in time, and it switches across, and then you've got. And do you know what it was for me when I started to realize the potential for it? I was in retail. I was working for Orange, which is now EE, and the first iPhone came out, and it really punched in when your mobile phone became a computer. And don't get me wrong, before that point, you had like PDAs and different, which were essentially computers. They were very technical, and they had good processing power for that age, but they didn't have popular appeal at all.
But on top of that, it was because the browser in the iPhone and early Android was essentially almost desktop level browser, because before then you had WAP, which you had to make specific websites that were just text based. But when you had something like that, that kind of changed the game. But basically, when you could actually have like broadband was like always on, but you had to be tethered to your house.
Yeah,
Wi-Fi. Even I was at university when Wi-Fi became a thing.
Yeah.
So but what I was trying to say, we've seen those things, and like culturally, we saw like a kind of a bit of a Wild West.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really think about the things that we've seen as teenagers, early internet, to what is acceptable now, some very disturbing things used to go viral online, and those things wouldn't wash now.
I just remember Charlie bit my finger.
Yeah.
I mean, please tell me that's still okay, Charlie. That Charlie had his
but I remember when they were like, especially like, you know, the early days of like the Iraq War and like some of those terrorist videos that kind of like there were like teenage boys that were like, oh, come on, let's have a watch of someone actually getting murdered or something.
Oh, I think I missed that one. I think I missed those ones.
Or like
maybe I lived a sheltered life.
like Faces of Death and all that kind of stuff. Like,
oh no,
that was like really that kind of stuff. But like those things.
Yeah, we're glad we're not having that sort of stuff on there now.
Like, you know, I mean, a lot of the sites are moderated now.
Good, that's good.
So, which is a good thing. But
that's good, yeah.
I think we're looking at what 20 years now of like having the internet in our culture. Yeah. And now we've got that reach. I think the internet is now reflecting back on us. So that means that the things that we say and do are now that there's a shift in how those things, what is acceptable and what's not. It's not a local thing anymore. It's not even a national thing anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So like even the whole idea of blackface in Japan, now that the cultural connotations of that is completely different to what with westernized people would see. But now they're gonna have to kind of walk that back now and see, okay, there's parts of the world where this is highly offensive. And I think that's the kind of thing that's why I'm saying there is a culture of fear, but the culture of fear is really there because of the unknown. We are in a transition where we don't know what is the social norms that have changed quite a lot.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
I think, you know, with that, and then we are now in a world where there's receipts.
Yeah,
and there's a whole discussion about that. I mean, what, you know, 15-year-old me believes to the 40-year-old believes now is completely different. I've grown, I've studied, I've had life experience.
Is it fair when because obviously, you know what happens if somebody gets somebody gets quite famous or whatever, like they have, you know, they start doing well for themselves and suddenly, and you'll get somebody trudge through all their social media of that person and they're deliberately looking to see if they can trip them up. Like, okay, let's see what he said when he was 15. And if he was a bit of a naughty boy and said something that, you know, is not really quite with what we're looking at now in terms of our cultural values now, they're like, oh, you said this when you were 15 or 17 or whatever, you know, we're going to deplatform you. Now, yes, you know, obviously, let's take granted when we're 15, we say crazy stuff we shouldn't say and whatever, and everybody probably has in one way or another, or even if we haven't, we've certainly thought it or whatever. You grow up, you mature, you have more life experience, like you said, Omar. You meet more people of different values, of different faith systems, of different lifestyle systems, and you build good friendships, or you get more understanding of different groups of people. Great, this is life. You're learning. If someone's trudging through your past to try and trip you up, there's issues there, isn't there? There's issues that obviously, okay, we found you. It's almost like a malicious, like, okay, we've tripped you up now, we've got you. And then that gets blown out of proportion in some situations. And then it's like they get tried by the court of public opinion. And it's like they get beaten up, like they get browbeaten and beaten up. It's like, man, okay, yeah, you shouldn't have said whatever you said when you're 15, whatever. But man, I'm uncomfortable with that kind of. We're going to browbeat you now and point and tell you how bad you are because you've been a naughty boy. And we are your arbiter. We're the judge, jury, and executioner. We are judging you. And it's like, hang on a minute. I'm sure you're not perfect either. Let's get biblical on this. So hang on a minute. Who are you to judge? Let's bring the Lord into this. he or she who's without sin cast the first stone. You know what I mean?
I completely get that. And there's a discussion to be had about that. But on the other side of that, one of the things, interestingly, when I was at university, I did a paper on it called Attention Economics, and that's what the internet works on. Like especially social media. I remember like looking at the early days of like Facebook, but you know, and and more to the extent of when like MySpace was around, because my brother,
I love MySpace.
My brother was a musician, and he used to like make music, and he would like to want to try and get it out there. So I used to help him. I mean, it's kind of like what I do for my job now, and it's the idea of that. What with everything that's out in the world now, we only have so much attention to give.
Yeah, that's a good point.
With that, we have, we have to know what we're giving our attention to. So I get the whole thing about the browbeating, but then there's the other side of it, which there's definitely a conversation to be had. But then the other side of it is, who do I want to give my attention with everyone online? Who do I want to give my attention to? So on that, sometimes there is nuances completely, but on the other side, for me, I would say that on a personal level, that if I don't like what you say, I'm not giving you attention.
Yeah.
I'm not browbeating you, but like right now,
you handle it in a very mature way, though. You're not crying for every person to be deplatformed every 5 seconds. I mean,
but then on the other side, I will tell you that I've had a Twitter account since 2008. I had it relatively early days. I don't have it anymore. But ever since Elon Musk took over, and I heard, it was like he's
a crafty. Omar, that man is crafty. He's crafty. He's crafty. This is the thing, right? He come in there, and he's clever. He does what clever people do. Who clever people who are crafty. He does basically. He's a Gino. He's absolutely.
He likes to take credit for a lot of people's other works and stuff like that.
He's a Gino. Let's use this. Let's talk. Let's say a spade is a spade and not a big spoon. The man is a Gino. What he's doing. I've seen him, right, and I'm watching him. He's playing a lot of the conservative people in the USA that are like, who feel like they've been browbeaten in terms of, you can't say this and you can't say that, and if you are, we're gonna shut you down, deplatform you because you've been a naughty boy or naughty girl. And he's like, okay, you know what? I'm standing up for you. I'm defending you. I'm defending free speech. But listen, I don't believe that for a second. I believe he's got his own agenda, and you've got to recognize that anybody and everybody has their own agenda. They've got a reason for what they're doing. Musk is a smart man. He's not stupid. He's got his own agenda, and I believe. I think
he's a smart man, but I think the kind of character that he portrays makes him more smarter than he actually is.
Yeah,
I don't think he's as smart as people think he is.
Yeah, you think there's smart, a bit of He's good. He's good at getting you on side, and obviously the way you do it is you want a world to get people on side. You want to kind of polarize an argument. So essentially, you want to try and make the argument as black and white as possible. You don't want nuance in it, because if you get people who are good at nuance and saying, but if you get people that are very good at sort of, that kind of Socratic method where you can look at things from somebody else's point of view and look at the opposing argument. He doesn't want people like that, because then people will pick holes in his arguments and his philosophy. So he wants people that are polarized, like, okay, not like Anakin, if you're not with me, then you're against me. He wants people to have that mindset. So it's like, okay, it will probably be going, the liberals are they're the villains, and then to the ones, the conservatives, they're the villains. So you want that polarization is what he would want, because he can essentially, he probably plays both sides. He's basically like the emperor. He's playing both sides of the argument, and and then he's rattling the cages and getting people all riled up, and he's making himself out to be the white hat hero kind of thing. And he's getting what he wants. And I think for me, it's really funny because it plays into sort of, do you remember Eric Bischoff with his WCW?
Yeah.
Remember that famous,
with the whole NWO.
Remember his famous slogan with the controversy creates cash?
Yeah.
That's what he's doing,
isn't it?
Yeah. That's literally what he's doing. It's that controversy creates cash model. Geeks and gamers do it all the time. It's that idea of monetizing angry reactions. It's monetizing outrage. And it and you can now the question is it's whether you're genuine or not. Like if you're like genuine, like okay, you feel that you're representing people that are being not being represented properly or are sort of being mistreated in some way, and you build a community around disenfranchised people, that's one thing. I would respect that because your heart's in it. You genuinely are with that community and you're actually being a voice to that community. But if you're sort of Musk, that's a difference. I don't think Musk is with that community at all. I don't think he is. I think he just is kind of jumping on board with it and riding the wave of the outrage, and that's why I feel he's a bit of a
it creates engagement on his platform that he sorely needs to make money on because he got overpaid for it. But but from when I saw I don't necessarily I don't have a kind of a stance on deplatforming and replatforming.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a lot of people who have been deplatformed for a reason. And I think I do think that there is a level of accountability that goes with what you do say.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think about the receipts. I think that's true. Like, I think where it's difficult.
There's a difference between if you said something 5 years ago and you don't believe now, and there's when you are spouting things and you are like, a 70-year-old man.
well, look at the situation, which was not that far away. Obviously, in a few weeks, we've got Mandalorian season 3. Yeah. No, we both love Mandalorian. Mandalorian's a great show. Yeah. Honestly, from the Mandalorian, we saw what was going on. We thought, okay, this show is going somewhere. And apart from the Mandalorian himself, you've got the other big star really was Cara Dune, Gina Carano, and obviously we saw what happened with the Gina Carano gate, where basically she said she's coming out with certain political statements, and we had an episode where we spoke about this on Christian Fandom Geek. We had a really good chat about it, and it was one of those things where it was like the difficulty is Gina's obviously said certain things over and over again, or in a certain sort of going certain direction about her political views. The issue is whether she's violated her contract with Disney, Lucasfilm, whatever. The issue then comes in, but the fans were saying, well, Gina's got fired because she said certain things, but then Mando, I forgot his name now. He's got basically
Pedro Pascal.
He's basically kind of said certain things, but he wasn't. He's liberal, so he's saying it against Republicans, where she's saying it in favor of Republicans. But the statements that they said were quite similar in a sense of their similar context of criticizing their opposing sort of political party. And they're saying, well, if she's been disciplined, then shouldn't Pedro Pascal be disciplined as well? Because it's in the same genre of comments. It's just a case of the company are favoring one ideology over another.
But is it?
And that's the trick. That was the trickiness of
there's a trickiness, but there is a nuance on the power dynamics.
I'll say it again, sorry.
There is a nuance to that, but then you got the level of the power dynamics in what you're saying. Like he can believe something, but are you punching up or are you punching down? You can be saying the same thing of opposing things, but who is it hurting?
Okay.
Like with Pedro Pascal, he has a family member that's transgender, and was defending that, and if you say something like that is a minority, that is a vulnerable group.
Yeah.
If you're saying something opposing, yes, you are saying that two sides of the same coin, but there's a power dynamic in that. Because we live currently in a heteronormative society.
Yes.
Cisgender, like heteronormative society. So anything that's outside of that realm is othered, which is a minority, which is going to be a community that is going to be is going to be the minority. Either way I see it is that any kind of negative discussion in that is punching down. I mean, you can have a discussion, but if you're going to be negative about it and not like come with a heart of trying to learn, then I have an issue with that. So I do get it. It's just like there are. I don't want to get too controversial, but there are subjects out there where you do not, where there's two opposing sides, but they're not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah, I get it.
You know what you're saying? Like the least controversial there's climate change. Like you can't be really balanced on that when there's like 98% of scientists who say that there is climate change. There's 2% that's not. That's not an equal argument. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I suppose the climate change one is interesting because I know the opposing argument is, well, the Earth does naturally warm up, which is true.
Mm-hmm.
It does not, because I've heard, I don't know if it's scientists that said it or historian that said it, and they said, well, when the Romans first came over to England and conquered England, they were growing grapes in the north of England, like it was warm. It was like so there is a natural actual shift in terms of the temperature of the planet. So the planet would warm up even without the burning of carbon fuels and things like that. The planet would naturally warm up and then get colder again. And I think it's been warming up since after the last ice age. It's actually been then warming up again, and then eventually will go colder again, which is quite
well. There is that, but then when you look at it more on a macro level, you can see that post-industrial revolution, it's heated up a lot more rapidly than it should. You know, but I mean that's why that's kind of like the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
But on a biblical level, on that side, like we are supposed to be stewards of this planet, and that's kind of where when my environmental stance is that I look at it biblically and say, look, we're supposed to look after this place.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's kind of where I come from. I've just seen this comment here.
Sci-fi Nation,
I do get that. The kind of separating the art from the artist. But it's a bit like I think it works on a case-by-case basis. I think the thing is,
they always say be careful, don't they? Be careful meeting your heroes because they might disappoint you.
but it is true though. Like there is that you can be a great artist and a completely terrible person.
Look at I'm going to say it, but I hope this stream doesn't get deleted for saying it. But look at Kevin Spacey.
Well, that's exactly who I was going to talk about just then.
Look at Kevin Spacey. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you, right? I saw a film about Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey was in it, and they were promoting the film, and they promoted the film as if Kevin Spacey wasn't in the film. I saw something on Sky, and I'm like, hang on a minute. I'm sure Kevin Spacey was in this film. Like, and it's like, there's no mention of him at all. I'm like, man, that guy's really been deleted. He can't be mentioned. They will not mention his name at all. Now, obviously, I'm like, listen, Kevin Spacey obviously has some deep-seated psychological issues going on, and there's some outrageous and outlandish moral behavior, but he does exist, guys. Like, you can't actually delete his existence out of all reality. Like, not even God has decided to delete him out of all reality. He's still living and breathing somewhere on the earth. And are we quick to get rid of any kind of redemption? I mean, I don't know if he can be redeemed in a public arena setting.
As someone who has family members in the industry, it was an open secret for years. It was not a surprise to me because I was being told about Kevin Spacey for years.
Wow. Well, obviously he was in London, wasn't he, for a long time?
Yeah. But what I was going to say about deleting someone out of existence, bringing it to a bit of a wrestling one, Chris Benoit.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Like, he doesn't exist.
You're absolutely correct. Yeah.
But unfortunately, he'll never have a redemption arc.
No.
Yeah.
Oh man, he was a great wrestler, athlete. He was amazing. He was amazing. Loved him. Absolutely, I was a big fan of his Benoit. Absolutely massive fan of him.
I mean, the style of wrestling I've always enjoyed growing up, it was the more technical.
Same as me.
Bret Hart is still my all-time favorite. But like, it is like he was one of those guys, but you cannot, like, WWE will not make any reference to him.
I know. They're a funny company. They are. I saw Sasha Banks has gone to Japan, hasn't she? Like New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yes, she's the
I need to watch the
IWGP
video.
Women's Champion.
I need to watch the video of that because like she would do some. She's such a good worker.
Yeah,
she's such a good worker. I can't believe that WWE the way that they treated her. Like she's like. I don't get it. I literally don't get how she's like. I mean, don't get me wrong. She had multiple championships, but they kept taking every time they give her a championship, she'd have it for about a few weeks and take it off her and give it to Charlotte Flair.
She kept dropping it at pay-per-views, isn't it? Every time, pretty much every pay-per-view she would drop it.
Yeah, like it was that's insane. Do you know what? I hope she goes to AEW. I really do. I hope she. I know obviously.
I think. Well, the hints are there because there was pictures of her with Kenny Omega. In Japan, after the last New Japan, because they had a New Japan show, was it last week in the US, and Kenny Omega was there, and she did say something along the lines of, I'd love to work together soon, and I know that you're a specialist at mixed tag teams, so I'd definitely like to see a Mercedes Moné, Kenny Omega team up. That would. Definitely.
She's and obviously she's in Mandalorian. I'm guessing she's probably going to be in Mandalorian season 3 because they need to push her. And who's the other one that was in it as well? She was in Battlestar. Oh, what's her name?
Yes, Bo-Katan.
Yeah, the one that played Bo-Katan. Like she's, I forgot her name now, but she's good in the role. Yes, she's good in that role. So I'm guessing they'll push them two forward as kind of sort of strong female characters, because obviously, that's the thing that one of the things about Manda that I enjoyed is seeing the strong. I mean, obviously we saw there's other good strong female characters in Mandalorian as well, but it's good to see that mixture, isn't it? It's good to see kind of like the strong male. I think for me, like when you were having it, and it was one of my critiques of Star Wars was the idea of that. When they were pushing Rey, it was the idea of them. They were making the male characters look quite silly and not. It just wasn't quite right. It's like for me, it's like if you're gonna, you know how vexed I'm about Luke Skywalker. I'm still not over that.
But that's.
I'm not. But listen, that decision was so bad. That decision was so bad.
It made complete sense, but.
It got raptured. It got raptured. It got raptured. Right, listen. The brother.
Hold on. Ben Obi-Wan Kenobi also got raptured.
Yeah, he did. But we saw before Obi-Wan got raptured. Right before he got raptured, we saw him. He was badass. Like he was a badass.
So hold on. So Luke, he wasn't badass at the last moment where he force projected himself across the galaxy. Fought used force powers to the point that he could actually physically touch things.
Well, all the new ages do that.
I'm just saying that there was badassery before the Ascension.
Badassery. I
don't think you can take that away.
Okay,
Finn, yes, I do think that, but I think Finn that was more not a problem with. Well, there's a problem with storytelling, yeah, but marketing, because they're marketing.
Well, they can't market a black man.
Well, they marketed him like he was a lot more significant than he was originally.
Yeah,
but it's the whole mystery box thing that J.J. Abrams does, where he does this mystery, and I don't think most of the time he doesn't 100% know what's actually in the box. Just look at the last season of Lost, you know what I mean? Yeah. So there was that, but but I want to know who do you think really was actually made to look silly? Males that was made to look silly in the new trilogy. So at the expense of Rey, because I'd say Poe Dameron was very competent.
He was. Okay, let me go. Poe was competent up to the point of the rise of Skywalker, and then when he takes on that dreadnought right by himself and is literally ignoring orders from his superior, and then getting half of his fleet like blown up to smithereens just to get rid of that dreadnought. I'm like, and he's like, what is he doing? Suddenly he's gone. I mean, yeah, okay, he's got a bit of that flyboy, Han Solo about him.
But then what you're basically telling me is that Poe Dameron should have no arc. That was an arc. It was to humble him. He we already established that he was the best pilot in the galaxy. But there was there needed to have some way of humbling him so that he could go on an arc, and that was it. So I don't see that as another way of. I don't see that as an expense of making Rey a better character. I don't see any. I can't think of any male in the new trilogy that was dumbed down to make Rey better.
It seemed in the Rise of Skywalker. Well, I think in part as a Last Jedi, but in Rise of Skywalker, for me, it was like they were making the men look a bit incompetent. Either like Finn, where he was just bumbling around all over the place, and everybody needed to kind of almost like rescue him all the time. And it was sort of some. I think I spoke with. I think I had an episode with Alex about it. Actually, kind of they put him in like a damsel state of mind, like the damsel in distress sort of thing all the time.
Okay. Question about that. What's wrong with that?
The damsel in distress motif. Wow.
So we were happy. So we were happy with it with Princess Leia playing that trope.
Well,
but we looked at. We saw a trilogy arc story of a male being the main character and going through what they had to go through.
Yes.
And now we're gender swapping it, and now that's an issue.
Well, okay.
Like we're talking about someone who's so super force sensitive. So someone who's super force sensitive.
Yeah.
And is highly capable in the Force, and we're looking at a human. You're basically saying that if it was like you have the Superman and Lois Lane, you have Superman and Lois Lane. Now, would it be a problem if it was Superwoman and Superwoman's partner being who's got no power, but because they have no power, they need to be equal to Superwoman? Just for the sheer fact that people are going to say that it's been dumbed down. It's basically a trope. It's just a gender swap trope. So I don't see why that has to be an issue, that we are happy for a woman to be in that role, but not
as a damsel. As a damsel.
Well, not necessarily a damsel, but being the one that's less capable. Why does that have to? Why does a character, because of their gender, being less capable due to their power set? Being a thing. I mean, with Finn, that's not 100% true. Just like how Leia was, where Leia could handle some stuff herself. Just like how Finn was the one who got them into the base in Force Awakens. Like he had his skill set. He was there. You know, I mean, he was the lead person in Canterbite. I know that's a whole other thing, but
that doesn't exist. That's been wiped out of the multiverse.
No. It has to be there because of the whole thesis of that anyone can be a
Canterbite is the worst thing that has ever come out of Star Wars. Probably it's gotta be. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't have been in a Star Wars film. It shouldn't have been in there. It was unbelievably bad. It was bad. It was very bad.
Really?
It was. Yeah, I mean, it's not Kevin Spacey bad. It's not Kevin Spacey bad, but it's pretty bad.
I don't think that's the worst thing that's happened to Star Wars, man.
It's not Kevin Spacey bad, but maybe the Ewoks were like somewhere near that as well. But
I'd like to point you to a small video you couldn't find on YouTube called the Star Wars Christmas Special.
Oh God!
Let's talk about terrible things.
Okay, maybe. Okay. It's not Jar Jar Binks bad, but
Jar Jar Binks.
It's not Jar Jar Binks bad.
Oh well, worst thing that ever happened to Star Wars was Episode 2, but that's a whole other conversation.
I don't know why you hate Episode 2 so much.
Because it's awful. And it doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't really. You could actually, you could probably carry on without Episode 2. You probably could. But to be fair, I think you could have started at Episode 2
Well, we had this conversation before. Episode 2, the story that should have been the start of the trilogy, and episode
I agree.
2
You
you
mentioned that before, and I agree with you about that.
Yeah, and the Clone Wars should have been the second film.
Yeah,
and then the Fall of Vader, Fall of Anakin.
Yeah,
that's what I think would have actually made a lot more sense.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm just saying that. I'm just saying that I don't think even that. I do think that they didn't know what to do with Finn, but I don't think the character arc that he was on was negative in putting Rey ahead.
Well, okay, so obviously the whole Finn Rey thing is first of all, obviously they were. I don't know why they friend zoned him, because it did look like they were going to be a couple, and I don't. And I've watched videos about that where apparently they were supposed to be a thing, and they changed it. That's what I've heard, some things about that kind of thing, that they kind of bottled it on that, and then they kind of swerved. So that was one thing. I was like, but then the whole, like you said, going back to what you said, Omar, about the promotional thing that they promoted him as a central protagonist and stormtrooper turned Jedi. That was that would have been a really interesting story. It would have been.
But the thing is that that's basically critiquing something that didn't happen. That's something that you wanted to happen.
What is something?
You know what I'm saying? There's what is, and there's what you would like to have happened.
Wow, but this is the thing. The problem is though. No, I agree what you're saying, but the problem is then obviously they presented it that way in the first one, and then they alluded to it in the third one. So in the Rise of Skywalker, suddenly, mysteriously, Finn is Force sensitive.
That was a stupid idea. But again,
they alluded to him being Force sensitive but they alluded to him being Force sensitive in the Rise of Skywalker, because the moment where basically in that village where everyone's being shot up by the stormtroopers and he stops, they alluded to him that something's going on with him with the Force. So actually, they've put the little seeds, breadcrumbs that in that film he's probably it comes across like he may be Force sensitive. And then they bring it in the third film, but don't confirm it, and they just kind of allude to it, but kind of allude to it in such a way that it's like, oh, it's obvious he's Force sensitive, and then he goes, "Oh, Rey, I have to tell you something," blah blah, and then he never tells her that he can use the Force or he's feeling the Force. But then you see at the end of the film, he's obviously Force sensitive now. So obviously,
it's a similar thing. It was a similar thing with Princess Leia, though. Think of the original trilogy.
But they should, to be honest, they should have. I would have seen the lightsaber.
But they didn't. They seeded her Force sensitivity in that too. The only time you really get a real payoff is when you find when with the Han Solo, you love him, don't you? And he goes, yeah. He's my brother. That's when you go, oh, okay, then that completely makes sense. But it was again, if you look at Finn with almost a similar arc to Princess Leia, being that kind of secondary protagonist. I know that they really did screw the pooch in the third one, but there is similarities there, and I would say to critique it, to say that he shouldn't have a similar arc, then I do think that I have an issue there.
You do. This is like our debate when we had the episode on we were talking about the Last Jedi when we had a proper debate episode on that. If you guys, if you're interested in that, find that on Christian Fandom. It was a very good conversation. This is like part 2 to that one, and we got a lot of plaudits for that conversation. Actually, a lot of people enjoyed that.
I mean, I get what Sci-Fi Nation is saying about Vader did sense Leia, like in Empire Strikes Back. But what I'm saying is not that like the specific thing, but I'm just talking about if you look at it like from the overall arc. Finn is essentially kind of the replacement of the Leia character in the new trilogy, and I don't think his arc was at the cost of Rey's arc.
But if you
I just don't think that so what I'm saying is that I don't, as Rey is the main protagonist of the new trilogy, I don't think that it was wrong for her to be as capable as she was.
Well, okay, I know, I agree.
All the male characters,
what I would
all the
say
male
is this.
characters shouldn't. You weren't. I don't think any of the male characters look stupid at the cost of making Rey look good.
What? Okay, but like this is okay. So it's a good point that you said there. But okay, this is what I'd come back at you with. Look at what happened in obviously the Force Awakens. Okay, so obviously, I mean, you could tell that there was issues with it because they had to address it in the Last Jedi, which they did, and I was actually surprised they addressed it in the film in the Last Jedi, because obviously there's a part where Snoke basically like lambasts Kylo Ren, and he's like, you know, you let this girl who's untrained beat you in combat, pretty much, like with a lightsaber, like she's untrained in the Force, and he goes, oh yes, but she's strong in the Force, and starts whining and stuff like that. And I think they've obviously, to me, even though you could say maybe they planned that, I don't think they did. I think they've obviously listened to fans saying, hang on a minute, how is she beating Kylo Ren? And she's like, look what this guy's doing earlier in the film. Look what he's doing. Like, he's literally like stopping phaser fire in the mid-air. And like Poe Dameron was just looking at it like walking by, like, what is going on there? Like, this guy is very powerful in the Force. And then like this untrained girl who you can say I remember you talking about this with you before, and you talked about she's a scavenger. She had more training than Luke Skywalker. You know, I remember you saying that. I remember that because
I've even got another point here. Okay,
how is she beating him? How is she beating him untrained? She's never picked up a lightsaber before.
Okay, she never picked up a lightsaber. Okay, let's look at Luke's training. Luke's training is a trip between Tatooine to Alderaan, and then enough training on the Dagobah system that made it that the Millennium Falcon got from Hoth to Bespin, and then by the time they have their first dinner, Luke is back, and then he goes and fights Vader and can hold his own. Think about how much time that is. And we're happy to say that's actually that's enough training that he, like, by the end of Empire Strikes Back, that was enough for him to go toe to toe with Vader. That's not, like, if you think about it, Tatooine to Alderaan, and then on Dagobah enough time that it was Hoth to Bespin. That's all the time that he had training.
Yeah.
And then we have this conversation about Rey.
But
I know that there was no Jedi Knight to train her up until Last Jedi.
Yeah.
But we are talking about someone like all we know about Luke Skywalker is that he used to shoot womp rats and he was living on a moisture farm.
I suppose the argument would be
Rey, who was living on her own, who was scavenging, who had to fight people for this, like, for everything that she had. she had her staff thing, so she had some sort of combat training.
Maybe it would have made sense then, right? If they gave her a double-ended lightsaber and had to be like Darth Maul.
I think
that probably would have made more sense. Really, like, she could swing that. She's used to something, a weapon that sort of size, where she could swing it around. So maybe it would have been better if she picked up a double-ended lightsaber.
I think that would make sense, because it would have been a natural progression from the weapon that she was having.
Would have been. See, we could write Star Wars better than the guys. Omar, look, anyone from Lucasfilm, if you're watching this stream right now, or you hire me and Omar. We're two young black guys who understand Star Wars, and we could do with the money as well. You know, any extra money.
Dave Filoni.
Did you know?
Yeah, come here.
Yeah, even Kathleen Kennedy. Like, Kathleen, I'm really sorry about all the stuff I said to you on the channel before. Like, don't listen to any of the other guys who. I'm not like the other guys that have a go at you. Like, I want to meet you and write Star Wars with you. So please, Kathleen, please forgive me for anything that I've said about you that I shouldn't have said. You know, in critiquing you. You know, I know Solo lost money, but we're not going to go about that now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, me and Omar, give us a job, man, and we'll sort Star Wars out for you, honestly.
But
I'm just saying, and it's good for diversity as well, because we're black. So come on, Kathleen, do what you need to do, man. Just email us. Email me, Kathleen, on the channel, and we'll sort it out. We'll go over to you at Lucasfilm, man. We'll sort you out. We'll look after you.
Well, I mean, I'm seeing the Sci-Fi Nation comment there. Was a question to you, Aaron?
Yeah.
Was Luke any less of a Mary Sue?
Hang on, he's got another comment. Sci-fi sport. The midichlorians were fruitful and multiplied quite a lot.
So was Ray.
I don't. Is that sci-fi? Are you being facetious here, or are you being? Is it a credible question? I don't. Is this sort of double entendre here? Is this kind of innuendo or something going on here? I don't know, but I'll take it as a straight question. That you're being straightforward.
But then that was answered by, which I hate, but it is now canon. Her lineage is similar to Luke, having the lineage of the Palpatines. I think
that was some MacGuffin. That was some shocking MacGuffin, man.
That was awful. But what I'm saying though is that I don't think, if you really really look and analyze like Luke's arc in the original trilogy, he's as much of a Mary Sue as Rey was.
I suppose you would say that the midichlorian argument would be, was Luke powerful because of, obviously is powerful because of Anakin, and Anakin's obviously the most powerful light side user in all of Star Wars canon. It should be.
And then who was, well, basically seen as the most powerful of the dark side canon.
Yeah, with the Palpatine thing.
Sidious.
Yeah,
that makes sense then?
But it's bizarre because obviously we know that they didn't originally plan for her to be Palpatine's, what is it, great granddaughter or granddaughter, whatever it is.
But then in the lore, there is the whole idea that the Force will always bring balance. So even if it wasn't a particular, I mean, that was established in The Last Jedi. So the whole idea of it having to be a lineage and not be just anyone. Which is that, before the whole stupid midichlorians like kind of thing. That was the whole idea. The whole idea
retcon, wasn't it?
Yeah, if you look at the whole the Campbell's like monomyth thing, anyone can be a hero. That was supposedly the original kind of thesis behind the original Star Wars trilogy. Bringing that back in with Rey, it was a similar thing.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you about. Sorry, I'm just going to put this thing on here. There we go. I think I agree with you. Like, that the whole kind of the monomyth. Yeah, the monomyth is literally like anyone could be a hero. It is literally the hero's journey arc. Is
that's why Canterbite matters, because of that last scene.
I suppose the problem
is the little kids being inspired and being Force sensitive shows that anyone can be a hero. And
I suppose the interesting thing about the hero's journey is this: it's a really interesting fusion, isn't it? And obviously we love how George Lucas has studied, Joseph Campbell, and obviously I know it's not only Campbell's influences. You got Flash Gordon and different Japanese cinema and all these different influences. This sort of fusion that's gone into Star Wars, which makes it so amazing, so great, and so iconic. But the hero's journey sort of archetype sort of thing, and I use it in my work with mentoring, actually, kind of with the lads I work with in mentoring. It's really powerful stuff. Is that it can apply to ordinary everyday people. Anybody can. It's supposed to reflect every human being in every culture, in every timeline. It's completely universal. But there are moments within it that are very mythical that you could draw out to do with legends and warriors, in different sort of genres, and parts of that are very mythical, that they get certain powers and things like that. And so you could then, it does lend itself well to the superhero genre, or to that sort of Star Wars using the Force genre, where it's somebody having great power, that it's like a bit supernatural, or a bit more than just like, everyday folk. So you can kind of you can use it in a multitude of ways, can't you? I guess in that sort of in that sort of respect.
Yeah, what Sci-Fi Nation says there is completely correct.
Yeah,
the force balancing itself. The Jedi needed to be wiped out, because if the prophecy was correct about Anakin, that it was to bring balance to the Force, the Force would have been is too weighed on one side than the other. So the fall of the Jedi I believe it had to happen for there to be balance in the Force.
It's interesting. It is an interesting notion, and obviously, I think that's probably a fair point in a sense of they always do balance it out. Like it's like either, but it's really weird as well because obviously you always have a lot. You always get to a point where there's a lot of Jedi and not many Sith because the way that the Sith work. I mean, I know there's eras where you have more Sith within Star Wars. Yeah. Within the Legends material, there's eras where there's a lot of Sith, but then obviously George just took it down the route of just kind of having the rule of two, isn't it, sort of thing? And you always have the apprentice, you have the master and the apprentice, and they just go on like that until you get to Palpatine, that then brings in, and then Palpatine, the most powerful Sith, really ever, but he's only around for what, like 40 years, and then he's kind of as the Emperor, and then he's done. You know what I mean? Which is an interesting one. So he didn't really have much longevity, but despite how powerful.
All I'm just trying to say here is that I do think that there was definitely. I will not say that there's not problems with the new trilogy.
You just think that
but I do think there's a lot more. I do think there is a lot. I do think that a lot of people take it a lot more on face value and not actually see the nuances that's there, and that
with the new stuff
does. Yeah, that it actually does make a lot more sense than it purports to show. I think if history, it's not history repeating itself, it's just history rhyming. Where it's just there are things that are there that have just repeated itself, but may not be in the same way that it was before, and because of that, some people I think get the wrong end of the stick.
So you think you say that there is a lot of nuance there. If you can see the nuance, you could say actually there's a lot of stuff that they ostensibly you think, okay, these guys, they don't know what they're doing, what is going on here. But if you really search it properly and you look for the nuances, you'll see actually they've put a lot of effort into it. They've been quite creative in doing it, but they've done it in such a way that it's flown over the heads of a lot of fans who were expecting it to be a little bit more like how it was before.
Yeah.
It's
just look at Force Awakens. It is a remix of A New Hope.
Yeah.
And if you look at the whole, even though it was somewhat directionless, but if you do look into the nitty gritty,
well, you love J.J. Abrams, don't you?
the new trilogy is.
I
do think the new trilogy is actually a remix of the other trilogy, but it's just remixed in a different way. Unfortunately, I didn't want it to be a remix because I thought that Last Jedi is absolutely great for the sheer fact that it tried to break into new ground.
I will give Ryan Johnson that it was a very ambitious project. He was ambitious, and you're right. He tried to completely. The idea of sort of confounding our expectations and the kind of doing things very different to what we expected, subverting expectations is what he said, didn't they? He certainly did that, and I think he has played into certain Star Wars tropes that
you could see that he knew what he was doing, that he knew the rules and he knew what to break. But I just think that some fans didn't want them to be. Didn't want those to be broken.
No,
and I think that that's the thing. That's what if you don't do those things, franchises get stale.
Yeah.
If you don't swing for the fences.
He tried.
I personally think that's what made the Book of Boba Fett fail, because it was so tied into things that I personally think that halfway through that season, like, the creators got bored of Boba Fett themselves and they had to put the Mandalorian in there to actually do anything. But it was so tied to
you're right. The problem
was so tied to that it got boring. You knew what was going to happen. So,
and the best episodes were the ones where Boba Fett wasn't in them.
Yeah. How can you have a show named after a guy like a protagonist, and it was that protagonist that didn't even do anything?
Okay, Sci-Fi is saying he thinks Johnson was trying too much during one film, considering JJ did the first and third. Probably too ambitious in some ways. I didn't like Snoke being killed through the halfway through the film as well. I don't think he killed him.
I love it.
Nah, man, not halfway through the film, man. Do it at least at the end of the film.
No, but what if he? That was the moment I was very engrossed in that film. That was the moment that even though I was engrossed, I sat up and I was like, "Oh, what the heck happened there?"
Yeah, you couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. What is going on?
I'll never have that moment again where I don't like. As I said, when it came to Last Jedi, Last Jedi is the only Star Wars film outside of Return of the Jedi when I was like 6, when I cried when I thought that Han Solo was killed. That was the only time. Yeah, the first time I watched like Return of the Jedi, that's the first time. But like that's the Last Jedi is the only other Star Wars film where you actually don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because the original trilogy, you knew that by the end of it, Palpatine was going to have to be defeated, and Vader. You knew.
Although originally though, George had it differently. George had it that because this is an interesting thing. I won't take up because we are coming towards the end of the stream, but it's been a great episode, Omar. It's been absolutely legendary episode again. Originally, from what I understand, George was going to have it that Luke fell to the dark side of the Force, and that Leia would have been the one to redeem him. That was originally what was supposed to happen, and then he.
Yeah, but the thing is, but at the end of the day, the good guys would have won by the end because
eventually.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that so original trilogy after Empire Strikes Back, you kind of know where we're going.
Yeah,
we know that the prequel trilogy, there's no surprises. We knew it's the fall of Anakin. The modern trilogy, we like Force Awakens was a remix of A New Hope, so we all kind of expected it was going to be Empire Strikes Back again, and it wasn't. So this is the only time that we knew. We did not know where this was going to go, and for me that was exhilarating. That was fascinating. Where I was going, why? Like we could actually have like a gray area, like it's half Sith, half Jedi, kind of like when Kylo was like, let's like tear down both institutions and like start anew. I was like, hell yeah, let's do something completely new. They should have done that.
They should have done that.
I know that, but the fans couldn't take it. The fans couldn't take that it wasn't. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why, for me personally, the second worst Star Wars film is Rise of Skywalker, because you had so much potential to do so much new things, and what did you do? You went and bottled it and just went back to
what they were
what was there.
And it didn't make sense then at that point.
It didn't make any sense. But that's why I think that Last Jedi is the most interesting Star Wars film after after Empire Strikes Back, because
Empire's the best one.
Empire's the best one. But like for Last Jedi, it had all the hallmarks of like what Rian Johnson did was open up the whole world to completely throw away all the tropes that we knew about Star Wars and have a whole chance of having brand new ways of telling stories in that world. But what Rise of the Jedi did was put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I tell you what, I probably would have liked The Last Jedi better. Obviously, I've got the issues about how they treated Luke, but putting that aside, about him getting raptured to Star Wars purgatory, putting that aside, I think if they show Finn more respect, and I'm not letting the Finn win go, if they show Finn more respect in his character arc, I probably would have liked that film more. I think
I can get that. I can get on board with that. I do think Finn should have been a bit of a more prominent in that trilogy anyway. But I'm just saying, like, on the kind of grand scheme of things, I do think that's why I think, and I do think that for the most part, that Last Jedi was successful. I just think that's the Rise of Skywalker just completely just scuppered any idea of what Star Wars could be going forward.
Yeah. And I suppose, and then the other issue is because so much of the fans, like myself, were like, "What is this film? What's going on here? What film have you just given us?" And like, "Oh, you're bringing out Solo, are you? Okay, we'll show you. We'll show you. We'll show you Kathleen Kennedy." and then Solo looks like Solo lost money, man. Solo,
Yeah,
Star Wars film lost money. It's like, what? You can put.
But then again, but then again, I think with Solo, I don't think it was just the fans. I think the studio bottled it too. They like, but after what happened with Last Jedi and what's the fan reaction? I mean, because the original directors were fired, and everything. So like they bottled, they didn't have a sure footing. So I think that cost them a lot too.
Yeah, man.
That's why I think the last two. I think when you have a great, like in Star Wars, I think if you have a vision, you can see it. That's why Mandalorian is as successful as it is.
Right.
John
Favreau and Dave Filoni. Great storytelling.
Yeah, but it shows in there. When it gets wishy-washy, that's when you have problems. I think Andor, again, singular.
Andor's amazing. Yeah. Great show.
I know to a lesser extent, I don't think it 100% worked as much as they wanted it to, but even Obi-Wan, those things, like there's a singular vision, and they were sure-footed in what they wanted to do with it. And I think the problems with Solo and with Rise of Skywalker, they didn't. They were very unsure what they did, and that kind of reflected in the final product.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at Andor, and we're kind of wrapping up this episode on Christian Fandom, guys, absolutely brilliant. Thanks, Omar, again for being on the show as well. And we will get Omar back on with Alex because like I said, I've got some really good episodes coming up with these guys. So I know everyone's busy, but now Omar's out of retirement, we can make it happen. But like Andor, I mean, like just great show. I mean, the first couple of episodes were really slow, and it was effort. It's like you had to really commit to it, but the payoff was so good. The payoff on Andor was so good. That prison arc, the 3 episodes where he was in prison, is some of the best. There's no lightsabers. There's no phaser fire. There's no starships going into hyper speed. There's no Millennium Falcon, but it's some of the best Star Wars. On whether it's TV or movies, it's some of the best Star Wars content that's ever been made. It's sophisticated, it's nuanced, it's great storytelling, and the end part of that sequence. I mean, I'm not going to, if you haven't watched it, go and watch it. Where it's just like, oh my gosh, you cannot believe what happens at the end of that prison sequence. To Andy Serkis, like you just can't believe it. It's just like, oh, you're joking me? Is this for real? Are you for real? It's some of the best story. The irony of it, of that moment, and like your heart just goes out to him. It's just like, oh my gosh, that can't be real. You can't, dude. Just go for it. Go for it. just go. Take the leap. Brilliant storytelling. Great storytelling. Right, so we've gone a little bit over what we said we'd do. So you guys at home, you've had more content that you should have had tonight. So big thanks for that, Omar, and thank you for being on this really good episode. Actually, a lot of fun, and we'll get you on again very soon with Alex.
Cool, that was great.
God bless you. Thank you.
Yeah, guys. Bye.
Thank you to Sci-Fi as well, and all the guys that left comments, and thank you to you at home who's going to be watching this episode as well. Smash the like button, share with friends and family and fellow geeks. Let us know what you think about our debate on The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, and we'll be back with you on Christian Fandom Geek very, very soon. God bless you all.